And that's kind of how we raise them, just no social media, no phones, no video games. But everything else, like you want to create a 3D Nerf gun, go for it. You want to record a little podcast, let's do that, you know. But just these addictive technologies that go in the pocket that we're like, we're not going to do that.
Well, parents, we need to teach our kids all kinds of different skills, from cooking skills, baking skills, bed making skills, but then there are character skills that we do need to be intentional about. And I'm so excited that Arlene Pellicane is here with me. You're going to get to know her and her ministry, but also you're going to get some insights into two out of the five skills that we need to be teaching our kids in the screen-saturated world. So, Arlene, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Danny. Great to be here.
I'm excited to have a conversation with you, Arlene, and to go deep into two very important skills to be teaching our kids. And let's just run through the five it's in your latest book.
Yeah,
What's
it's in
the title
Screen
of the book?
Kids,
Okay.
and that is co-authored with Dr. Gary Chapman.
Yes.
And so we're trying to think there's screens everywhere. So then how are we doing interpersonally? Like, how are our kids doing with their relationships? Because at the end of the day, it's not going to be like, wow, my screen and me. It's relationships that our kids need. So the 5 A+ skills, we know about the A+ of school, that we want our kids to do well in school. But if they had these A+ skills, think of how your child would do. Affection. They can give and receive love.
Yeah.
Appreciation. They approach life with gratitude, not entitlement. Anger management. We're going to get angry, but how do we manage that? How do we decipher if this good anger, is this bad anger? Should I be angry? Am I just throwing a fit? Apology. Do I know how to say, like, my bad, I'm sorry, please forgive me? And then lastly, attention. Can we take our wandering mind and pay attention in school, pay attention in church, pay attention to read, pay attention to listen to our parents as they're talking to us? So if your child has these 5 A+ skills and they're working on them, you can imagine, they'd be doing so much better than the average kid or teen today.
It's about training, right? And what's interesting is we come into this world with this right brain development that is so key, that relational side of our brain, where we're establishing trust with another person. Those first couple of years, there's tremendous amount of development in that area of relational connectedness with another person. It's called that right brain development. And then after that, there's a period of left brain development where we learn language, we learn academic skills, and it's those preschool years that are fantastic. But what's fascinating is we have that tremendous growth early on the right side, and then in the preteen, early teen years, the same thing, this relational growth where you're looking for relational connection. And if it's not happening, you begin to look for it in certain ways. And it's interesting that with the screens tend to create a sense of connectedness potentially, but you get that sense, but also that you don't have enough. It wants you to come back over and over again. And it's been designed in a very, very intentional way. So let's hone in on the skill of attention and the skill of appreciation. So let's start with attention. Why is this such an important skill for a child to have, the skill of attention?
Yes, it's the basis for self-control, like to be able to take my attention and put it somewhere where I don't feel like putting it, right? To be able to say, I have to do my math. I don't want to do my math. I want to watch TV. I want to watch YouTube videos, but I will take my attention and I will do the math. A lot of it is reading. Just think of it, if we want our children to fall in love with God, a key way for them to fall in love with God is to be able to have an attention span that could read through a psalm. Not Psalm 119, but let's just go like Psalm 1. They have the attention that, hey, I can read this and I can think about it. Now, the average child, right, you take them, you say, okay, child, read Psalm 1. They're going to read a few verses and then say, like, can we do something else now? Can we watch? Because their brain is trained to when they are watching videos, just watch the videos that your kids are watching, right? And you see things are changing very quickly. They're very
rapid,
funny.
boom, boom,
they're crass. They're, something is getting your attention all the time. And when that stops, then the kid is like, well, this is boring. I'm going to go to the next thing. And they find something else. So their brain is trained to think like, wow, this really has got to be something pretty special to keep my attention. And yet so much in life, whether it's walking through a forest, whether it's keeping eye contact and like listening to someone when they're talking to you, all these things, they need practice. And the being with the internet is not giving them this kind of practice to pay attention in a conversation, let's say, to pay attention in reading, to be able to read God's word and like even just take 30 seconds and say, well, God, speak to me about this verse, right? Like, that's pretty simple, let's say. 30 seconds, child of mine, be quiet and just ask God, listen. But a lot of kids, they can't do that because it's like 5 seconds in, they're like, okay, we got to go do something else.
What's interesting is with screens is that it's training your attention to be shifted for you.
Yes.
Right? So it's your brain is being trained to not have to think about where your attention is going to be. It's already, the decision's already made for you.
Yes.
And we're, as in a conversation, you're shifting your attention and choosing, I am going to pay attention to this person. There are other conversations next to me. And maybe my phone is beeping or whatever it's doing, but I'm going to pay attention to this person because they are important to me. So there's a value that's placed on what you're paying attention to. And what's interesting with attention as well is that it's something that takes strengthening. It's like you're working out. It's attention workouts for kids. And so if you give a child a screen too early, their attention is weakened. It's not an ADHD thing. It's an underdeveloped ability to pay attention, and because it's already been done for them. So let's say a child is working on assignments or things on the screen. What do you think about that? I get asked that question a lot, especially by homeschool parents. Hey, my child's on the screen a lot when we're doing homeschooling. Is it impacting their long-term attention? Is that bad? Is that good? What would you say to that, Arlene?
That's a toughie.
Yeah.
It's a toughie, and I would say the more paper you have in your life, the more a child is able to look at a book and look at paper and write, whether it's doing a math problem, whether it's writing an answer down. I think all of those things are really attention strengthening. I think those are good things. When your child is reading, whether it's a textbook or maybe they just need to read a fiction book for English literature and they're reading that on paper, then it really helps them to be there because they're just sitting there and they get a sense of, oh, I'm halfway through this book. They get a sense of, oh, that part I love, that was on the right side on the top, and they can find it again. And they are not distracted because there's nothing else to look at. You take that same book and you put it on an e-reader, right? And now I could like jump to a hyperlink to find out more about something in the book. I could like look at another book if I wanted to. I could just jump out and do something. So now my mind has to manage all those things and say, no, I'm not going to do that. No, I'm not going to do that. And then by the end, you're like, I'm just going to do it because they've thought that way. Yeah. So like in homeschooling, in schooling, I think the more we can get to things that are not screen related, that just helps the student, your child, to be more there at that thing. Now, having said that, are there really amazing things that a computer can do that a paper? Yes, you can tour a museum and you can do all these things, and that's really great. So I think be very like mindful, intentional, like this is how we're going to use it. This is how it's serving us. This is how it's going to be our tool. But if you see that either it's too much, like it's too many hours in the day, then maybe if you're a homeschooling family and you have power over that you could say, okay, we're going to spend the first 2 hours using the computer, but then we're going to spend the rest of the time not, or something like that. Right. Just having it more, just because you do get tired, like you have eye strain, you're just sitting stock still for that many hours, like just physically that can be wearing. And it's also the idea, like that's the norm, right? So then a kid gets used to like, oh, I spend 8-9 hours staring at a screen. That's like my norm. So then you move that forward and it's like, you know what, if you work later as an adult, You might be spending that time on a screen because of your job, so why not in your childhood? Why don't you like go out and do something? Like you might as well take advantage of it.
Right, it's hard to go the other direction.
Yeah.
So if a child gets used to a book and that physicality of learning, it's easier to go from that to screens, because there's a natural component to us. Screens have been designed to be very natural for us.
Yeah.
And it
don't
doesn't
have to
take
train
much
anybody
learning. No, that's right. All of a sudden, it's kind of like sugar. Right?
Yes,
you don't have to train
like sugar.
a child to like sugar. And yet some parents will say, man, I feel like if I don't introduce them early, they're going to be behind.
There was this study, this UCLA study that I love. Because that's the parents' fear. We live in a digital age. If my kid's not on a computer, they're going to be 20-something and they're going to be working at McDonald's because they don't know how to do anything. So they did this study where they scanned people's brains, 12 of them who use the internet all the time. And then they scanned another dozen who never used the internet. And indeed, their brains were different. The ones who used the internet, they showed scans for like quick decision making, peripheral vision, etc.
Fine motor skills.
Just really fast things, So they took the non-users and they just said, go on the internet for 1 hour a day for 5 days and come back to our lab. And they did that. And you know what happened, Danny? After 5 hours, their brains looked just like the other ones. They caught up. They could do all in 5 hours of use. They could like see the ads just as fast. They could click on the things just as fast because the computer does it for you.
Right.
Where if you took a child, right, who's been gaming their whole life, and again, not trying to throw guilt on you that way if you're gaming, but just you take that child who's been gaming and then you say, why don't you read for a little bit, right? Versus a child who's been reading all their life, and you say, why don't you game for, who's going to be better off, right? The game, you get the advantage. So really to help our kids realize this technology thing as a parent, to realize it can be learned so easily. But the skills of being able to pay attention, of being able to be appreciative of others, like all these really people skills, there's nothing to download an app like Be Nice app, or like Consider Others app. There's nothing like this. This has to be worked out to be able to pay attention. They have to practice that. So we were this very strange family in San Diego, public school, but our kids, we had a lot of technology, but we had done all this research, we knew all this, so the kids knew from very young. You see that person on a phone, you're not going to get one of those. See that kid on the iPad playing games, you're not going to play games, right? So they knew, and that's kind of how we raised them, just no social media, no phones, no video games, but everything else, like you want to create a 3D Nerf gun, go for it. You want to record a little podcast, let's do that, But just these addictive technologies that go in the pocket that we're like, we're not going to do that. And what was the result was when they went to school, as elementary school kids or junior hires, et cetera, they're like, oh, this is actually kind of interesting because their brains weren't trained on that constant, like getting that attention all the time. So they were like, oh, this is actually very interesting what my teacher has to say or what this kid is telling me about. And so it is a gift, I think, as we delay the screens as much as possible so it's much easier for them to pay attention.
And I think the key is developmentally kids from an early age are developing self-control. In those early 0 to 5 years, that early development is key to that development of self-control. And if a child has a screen, it's a known fact through studies, brain studies, they've seen that kids have an underdeveloped self-control system in the brain. And so then you begin to see behavior issues, they have a hard time paying attention, because attention has been done for them with the computer, and it literally is underdeveloped in their brain, the brain development. And so as parents, we have to really consider, how do we train this attention center in our kids, and especially the attentiveness of being able to be in conversation, attentiveness of being able to see God around them in such a noisy world. Because if it's so fast-paced and you have a constant screen and you're, whenever you're bored or in any downtime, you're going to the screen, your attention is not going to shift over to a conversation with God, because your soul does need to quiet down to have that. And so as a family, how do we shift the day's attention to this place of prayer, to this place of conversation with our Heavenly Father, shift attention to conversation with one another? Arlene, something that's fascinating to me is that moms have the superpower of their melodic voice, that it's very regulating to a child's nervous system, and it captures their attention. If a mom has calmness in her voice, the child's attention is able to be calmed down, to be more regulated. And it's interesting also that when we make eye contact, there's a regulation that takes place when we shift our attention to with each other's eyes, and we're able to see literally into each other's brains and souls that way. And it talks about that in Scripture. And so let's talk about, how do we shift attention to our relationship with God in such a noisy world in a way that can be done on a daily basis. What are your thoughts on that, Arlene?
Yeah. I think of, when you have a small child and even a teenager, the simple act, and I think this with small children, so let's start with that, of taking your hands and putting them on your child's face and looking them in the eyes and saying, good morning, I love you. Like that takes, 3 seconds. But it's just this warmth, right, that comes.
You're upregulating their emotions, right?
That's so helpful, right? And then think of, so that's wake time. So let's say it's wake time, good morning, I love you. And then think of meal times, that the meal time is already set. God already put that. Your stomach already put you in meal time. So you use the meal time, no devices, no chore lists, no nagging, this, but instead curiosity, What was the best part of your day? What was the worst part of your day? And really listen to your child and make it unhurried. That if you hurry everywhere else, but when you're at mealtime, and that's a vote for having a little bit of margin in your life, that you don't have to every single day hustle that we have 8.3 minutes for dinner, but that's something you're really planning so that you say, hey, we can have a 20-minute meal and sometimes longer and have conversation, and that totally works for us. So making that a rhythm, because that's a beautiful way to make sure that every day you're connecting in conversation. And then bedtime, using that bedtime, that is a sweet time for kids to hear you pray for them, to hear scripture over them, Bible stories. When they're teenagers, that may be the time where they open up to you, when you're lingering in their room and they're like, hey mom, hey dad, I had this happen to me today. And you're not in a hurry and you're just there to listen. So kind of have it on your heart that you're looking to make those times connection times, and you're welcoming it. You're not like, oh shoot, they want to talk, I wanted to watch my show on Netflix, but that you're like, oh, this is actually what I want, this is what I'm looking for. And at bedtime, I heard a children's pastor tell me that it's at bedtime when he's talking to kids, and he asks kids, like, when do you hear God? He says they say at bedtime, like when I'm sleeping, like about ready to go to bed, I'm quiet. It's when God talks to me. Maybe they remember something they heard from the Bible lesson, or maybe they're scared to go to bed. They're asking God, help me, I'm scared of the dark, whatever. So it's super interesting, because it is those quiet moments that we can carve out for our children that used to be givens, but now they're not, because we have these devices, we have these magic iPads, and we say, oh, child of mine, I've got the first one you read to them, but by the child 2, 3, 4, 5, you're like, here's the tablet, and it does all the things, and it reads the book for them, and they're like this, and So for us to raise, wait a minute, okay, let's skim our bedtime, and let's take those things out of bedtime so that our kids can have that end of the day, at least, in a quiet space, to hear God's voice and to tell him what's on their minds. Yeah,
I love that. We can fall into that trap of feeling like we're the uncool parent if we don't bring all the devices, or
we're the mean parent. We're the only one that didn't do it.
That's right. With attention with our kids, we get to model it, and that's what you're talking about. Being able to be present with them, listening to what they're saying. That is sometimes very difficult as parents to do, to calm down our minds enough to pay attention. I still remember, and I've shared this story before here at Focus on the Family, and that was, I picked up my daughter from middle school, and she had gotten in the car. I was so excited to have her in the car. I had a lot of things on my mind at that moment. I said, hey, honey, tell me about your day. How'd it go? And she started to talk, but I still had these other things going on in my mind. And I was thinking away on these things while she was just sharing, and I'd catch bits and pieces. I'm going, man, I really need to be paying attention, but I couldn't. And then she said, Dad, so what do you think? And I looked at her in the mirror, And I just paused and was going, oh no, what am I going to do? So I said, honey, my train of thought never stopped. I mean, it just kept going. I didn't stop at the station and hop into your train, and you kept going. Man, I'm so sorry. And she said, Dad, don't do that again. I'll forgive you, but don't ever do that again.
Do that again.
She was so upset. And I said, can we try again? Can I get on your train?
So funny.
And so she saw that, I think she's gotten it now more as she's gotten older, that it's sometimes hard to really shift our attention to be present with one another. And it's even harder when you've got a phone there.
Yeah.
Now, one attention shifter that I absolutely love is the attention shifter of appreciation, gratitude. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
How does that skill of appreciation help our children in their development?
This is such a huge thing, because if you are with someone who's like, well, I don't like that. Well, why were you so late? Well, I don't, like, who wants to be around a person like this, right?
Yes.
Like an unappreciative person. And that's what we're having, we're raising a whole bunch of kids who are not appreciative, who don't say thank you, that they're just silent, you know? And so for us to realize, wait a minute, this influx of technology is really impacting their gratitude, because the technology, all these advertisements, right, are showing them, you need more. You don't have enough, and your parents, they're withholding from you. Yeah. The celebrities, they're showing you what life is like. Your life is not like that.
Capturing your attention.
Yeah, it's like, your life is not like this. Mom, Dad, why is my life not more like this, right? If they don't like what they're watching, no problem. There's a gazillion other things for them to watch. They need an answer, they just ask Siri. They ask Alexa, they give the answer right away. So no more do you have to wait for things. No more do you have to just be bored. No more do you have to be appreciative of, like, oh, I got this, little flower that my mother picked up. They're like, this is all I get, So to understand that, wait a minute, that's robbing them. And not only is it making our child unpleasant to be with, think of Scripture. In Scripture, we're told, like, give thanks to the Lord for He is good. Enter into with thanksgiving. Like, all throughout Scripture, right, we're told to be thankful. What kept the children of Israel out of the promised land? It was their grumbling, that they said to God, this food isn't good enough. That fire by night, cloud by day business, I'm tired of it. This quail, if I eat it again, I'm going to gag. I'm tired of it. And that's grumbling spirit, which is the antithesis of a spirit that says, God, I might not understand why I'm here. I might not like everything that's happening, but I'm thankful. I'm thankful you're with me. I'm thankful you're going to see me through this. I'm thankful. I'm having trouble at school. My grades aren't good. My friends have been real mean to me, but I'm thankful that I have a mom and dad who love me. I mean, can you imagine if your child could get to such a place, right? That everything's going against them, but they can recognize, God, I'm thankful that I'm going to heaven. I'm thankful that my parents care for me. I'm thankful for the dog I have. If they can start doing this, speaking to their own soul and being like, I am thankful, and that's totally countercultural. But this is what this is how we're healthy and how we're whole. That in our Thanksgiving, then it's like our eyes are open, like, wow, I have so much. Instead of, I have so little. So.
Researchers have also found that kids in trauma
have
found benefit from a true place of gratitude.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating is researchers have found that if you hear a story of someone else in a place of gratitude, something they're absolutely thankful for, their life was saved, or they got this job that they so desperately needed, those are also healing to us when we step into that in a place of empathy and being able to really absorb the emotion of that person, being grateful for that. Also being grateful for people's contributions into our lives, the rolling credits of our lives. We don't do life alone ever.
Yeah.
And if we do, it's an unhealthy life. And so being able to recognize those people that have invested in us, that have encouraged us, that have been a part of our life, is so key to our development of experiencing actually gratitude inside of us and experiencing the benefits of that, the healing of the brain.
I love that rolling credits thought of what that would do for your brain.
Yeah, I mean, imagine a movie, there are 9 minutes of rolling credits for one movie. There's one character that you connect with, but all these thousands of people that participated in making that movie for you to enjoy. And in our lives, the same thing. Behind the scenes, there's so many people that have contributed. I still remember a moment with my dad. I'll never forget this. I was delivering newspapers. We had moved from Mexico to the United States, and I started with a paper out in 3rd grade. And just learning English, and I got this cool job to deliver newspapers, and my dad would help us roll the newspapers in the morning. It was early, and then in the evening at that time. And he would say the appropriate thing to say after somebody helps you like this is thank you. It's the appropriate thing to do.
Yeah.
And so we got on this rhythm of saying, hey, thanks, Dad, for helping out. Some days he would help, some days he wouldn't. And it wasn't a right, and he wanted to make sure we understood that.
Yeah.
He didn't have to help us.
That's right.
And so one day in high school, I woke up a bit late, and I didn't want to be late to school, right? So I woke up late and then noticed, hey, the newspapers aren't rolled. My dad usually would get up even earlier, roll some of them. I'd say, man, thanks, Dad. This time they were not rolled. And I went over to my dad. I said, Dad, I woke up late. Can you help me roll the newspapers? You didn't roll them. And he said, Danny, you didn't say thank you. You haven't said thank you in a little while. He said, I hope it goes well. And then he just rolled over.
My goodness.
And I'm standing up going, I'm going to be late to school. And he goes, well, all right. And he just stayed there. And he let me figure it out. But man, what a great lesson. I'm sure it was so hard for him.
That was so good.
And he's a peacemaker dad. I mean, he must have gone super deep inside of himself to not
pull
get
that
up.
off, right?
That's right.
His body wanted to roll so bad. He had to stop himself.
I'm sure he laid there in bed going, man, my son is going to this is going to be tough for him.
Yeah.
And we need to do that with our kids sometimes. Let them understand the difficulties of life, because that also can make you appreciative of what you've got. But also have these tough lessons, just like my dad had. And I know we tend to want to tell our kids, hey, say thank you, say thank you. It really needs to be an experience of gratitude where you recognize that something has been given to you as a gift. Let's teach our kids to shift their attention to that. Instead of this need to be perfect, that you have to say thank you in order to look good or have appropriate manners. It's more about a heart that experiences gratitude. And that's the skill we want to teach our kids. What does that look like as far as school and as far as friendships? How do we teach our kids those skills when they're in the day-to-day at school and with their friends?
And this might be something like at the beginning of the week that you're like, hey, you know what? We're going to do this little gratitude experiment this week. And I want you to look for something you really are grateful for about one of your, if it's an elementary school kid, maybe it's one teacher. If it's a kid who has got a ton of teachers, right, in junior high, high school, you say, pick your favorite teacher, or even your least favorite teacher. And think of like, what's something that you actually pick up that you're grateful for? And then let's talk about it at dinner. And then on Friday, on the last day of the school week, we're going to tell that person, hey, Mrs. So-and-so, I really like how you taught this unit about whatever.
Super
I found
life-giving.
it interesting, right? Can you imagine, right? The teacher's going to be like, what? Like, and be specific. Like, I really like how you start. I have one of the teachers, he always starts the day with, like, today's National Ice Cream Day. Like, he says whatever, this weird thing of the day, and that's how he kicks off the day. So it'd be like, thank you, how you always check, like, what day it is so that you can bring us this little, icebreakery kind of thing to school. We appreciate that. And then and then for your child to experience what that does to the adult that they thank, and to build that rapport is so beautiful. And then for the child to realize, I actually do have things that I'm grateful for. So little gratitude experiments like that, and you could do it at home, right? Let's find out what you're thankful for your brother, that you can do this. And they can be things that are the rhythm of your home, that maybe you all keep a gratitude journal for a month, and you just write down one thing every day, specific thing that you're grateful for, and then at the end of the month, you share a few highlights. It could be like a rhythm, or it could just be like a special campaign, like, hey man, these kids have not been grateful. I haven't been grateful. Let's really focus on this for 5 days and really try to up this gratitude. But rhythms like thank you notes. So we've always grown up, my parents did it, my husband's parents did it. It's like you get a gift, You write a thank you
now
note.
you can do a thank you video,
Right?
thank you
Yes,
text.
all these different things.
Right, you can.
So teach your
thank you.
kids this. Like they gave you something. It took time for them to buy this little gift card for you to get an ice cream cone and send it. That took time. So let's be appreciative of your aunt that she went to the store and got a gift certificate and sent it to you. Let's think about that. Like, oh, that took her time to do that, and then she had to put it in an envelope and put a stamp on it.
Yes,
so let's thank her. Let's make sure that we thank her and just make that a rhythm so that you really are grateful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and giving them the why, right? And in their form.
Yes.
Because I know some kids dread the whole thank you.
Yeah.
I was one of them as a kid. I'd go, Mom, are you serious? I have to write all these?
To do these things.
Can I just call them and tell them thank you?
Could. And that's beautiful too.
Right. And so let's think about creative ways to be thanking people. I love what you said with the teachers. I don't think we do that enough with them. A lot of them are there because they want to serve kids. They love kids. And people all around us, even the person bagging your groceries, stop and look them in the eye and say, hey, thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
A person that's a great waitress, great waiter, hey, thank you for serving with faithfulness, right? That's so life-giving to people around. We can model that in our homes.
Yeah.
Let's talk about in the context of Christmas, because we're talking about the gifts and the gift of Jesus for us through that time, this Christmas time. Let's talk about those two skills. How can we practice those two skills right now at Christmas time? What does that look like?
How do we pay attention? How are we appreciative, right, of the Lord? I will walk through the Dallas airport, and there's one of the gates. It's an American Airlines gate, but it has a bunch of World War II memorabilia. It has flags and medals and pictures and all sorts of things. And I remember the first time I saw it, I was really like awestruck. Like, these are photos of people who gave their lives in World War II. So I could be here. Like, I was like, wow, this place is amazing. I mean, you're at this regular airport and you see these medals. I was like, this is amazing.
It is.
But I'm looking around and I'm like, wait a minute, nobody is noticing this. Like, everyone's just walking by, dragging their luggage. The people are working at the gate. They are just look very normal. And it hit me, it's kind of like Christmas, right? That we know the story, we know what's going to happen, the baby's going to come in the manger, the shepherds, the wise, we know, and it's like, okay, and it is that point of like, let's pay attention. And I get it, the people who work at that gate every day, they're probably not, oh, look at the picture. I mean, that was my response in seeing it for the very first time.
Yes.
But how might we just like have a moment this Christmas where we see it for the very first time? And it could be through our children. That's what's so lovely about having children, is that maybe as we're sharing part of the story, you see a light in your child's eye, like, oh, I never thought about it, that there were animals there, or whatever it is that they're thinking. And pay attention to that. Pay attention to the things that cause wonder. Pay attention to when your children really seem to be responding to God or the message of Christmas, and kind of do more of that. You know, put in your schedule more things that point to the manger versus all, Jingle Bells is fine, Santa Claus is fine, like I'm not going to be the Scrooge, and but plan things in your Christmas schedule that's like, oh, this music is really about what happened at Christmas.
Yes.
This concert we're going to is going to be really God glorifying, and we're going to go there. So make it as much that our attention is being brought to the cross and the manger and that beautiful scene of God becoming a baby. And then, of course, appreciation, right, will follow. In the same way I saw that World War II stuff, I'm appreciative of these people who would give in such a sacrificial way, that we are appreciative of Jesus, of God who would send his son, of the Holy Spirit that would come, that we're appreciative of these things. And I have this little 25 Days of Christmas. It's a free resource, family devotions and kind of activities, ways to serve. That's completely free, that people can look at, and you can just pick out a few activities and do them if you're not sure where to start.
Good. That's good. So many of those, right? So many of those out there that help us shift our attention towards why do we even celebrate Christmas? Why do we do this? I was thinking about as we shift attention towards that relational place of Christmas. Some people have a lot of pain with Christmas that they're wrestling with, and I tell the kids that come into my private practice, the office counseling, I say attention is like, that's your spotlight. And you get to make the decision where your spotlight goes. When other things are deciding the spotlight for you or capturing your attention, you need to figure out why. Because you get to be the controller of that. And about 90 to 95% of our lives are lived in the subconscious. Things are happening. You have to take time to pause and reflect. Christmas time is that, where we get to figure out where's our attention and how do we get there? Where do we want it to be? And gratitude is such a great shifter to look more deeply, to create peacefulness, enough peacefulness for pause. And we just had Thanksgiving. What a wonderful momentum beginner as we go into Advent. And we begin to think about, this is Jesus' birth a long time ago, and he's coming back. He's coming back for us, and I'm so thankful for that. What does that mean? As I've been given a gift, how do I become a gift to others? And how do I shift my attention to what Jesus said? And he said, I haven't come here to be served. I've come here to serve others. What if we lined up with that? And that's that gratitude and attention together, that skill. Be an interesting conversation as families to have. Arlene, thank you for being here. I love what you're talking about.
You talked about the mother's melodious voice. I have to say, Danny, you have the melodious voice that brings the call.
Like a mom.
And I have to say, with that attention, what you're saying, like a lot of times that attention halo is around the phone. Like it's around the tablet, it's around the screen. It's like, Lord, this is where my attention is. And that's why we are lonelier, right? Because it's the wrong halo. So put the over the Christmas season, like put that whole spotlight not on the phone, put on the manger, put it on your family, put the spotlight there instead.
Yeah, that present of being present, right? Being present with each other. Yeah. I challenge you guys to do an experiment, just like Arlene was saying. Put the screens aside, be a gift to one another, lean in, talk about these things. Where's your attention? What can you be grateful for? Don't just do it at Thanksgiving. Let's keep it going. This is fantastic momentum as you create some new goals at Christmas time. It's been great to be with you. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel if you love this, and also ring the bell of notification so that you don't miss any videos moving forward. Make sure you check out mykidsage.com to get age-specific content sent right into your inbox. Good to be with you. See you again soon.